This is the new best budget gaming monitor, and this video is really just me explaining why. The biggest factor, by far, is the price tag. AOC have set this at £150. That is literally an inflation-busting price tag. While everything else in the world is getting more expensive, AOC is out here making gaming monitors cheaper. This is the 24G4X, a 1080p 24-inch 180Hz IPS gaming monitor, and while it isn't perfect, it's very much worth your money. Let me explain why. Starting with the gaming tests, AOC claims this has a 1 millisecond response time. This is a fantastic joke. I hope we're all in on by now, because no, this doesn't have a 1 millisecond response time. It's more like 7. On the medium overdrive mode, the one I would recommend you use, it takes around 6.5 milliseconds to change colour. There is very little in the way of visible overshoots, and while some results come out a little slower, I'm really pretty happy with this. High-speed footage of Aperture Girl's frog pursuit test shows that there is next to no ghosting visible at all. And while it's no OLED, it's a pretty reasonable experience. Just to highlight how they get that 1 millisecond figure, by the way, here is what the strong overdrive mode reports as. Around 3.6 milliseconds if you don't include the horrendous overshoot time, or 8.6 milliseconds on average if you do. Oh, and just genuinely awful overshoot. Like, here's the frog pursuit test so you can see just how bad that looks. Please do not set the overdrive to strong on this. It's a bad time. Happily, input lag is pretty good too. It's a touch higher than I would like at around 4.5 milliseconds on average. I'd prefer to see fewer results taking longer than 1 frame here, but on the whole, it's still pretty decent. And that means the playing experience is pretty good too. It's smooth, responsive, and is easy enough to game somewhat competitively on. Of course, this isn't something that esports pros should be picking up, but for your more average gamer, it's more than good enough for pretty much any genre of game you fancy playing. The 180Hz refresh rate is pretty great too. It's a nice little bump from the typical 144 or 165Hz options. It isn't quite as smooth as a 240Hz panel, but also the response times here do a good job of matching the refresh rate, so I'm not too worried. On the brightness front, I measured around 300 nits here, which, while on the lower end of acceptable brightness levels, is plenty for most environments, especially in darker rooms. It also beats its claimed contrast ratio of 1000 to 1 with over 1400 to 1 in my testing. That's great for an IPS panel. One thing I do want to add here though is that the backlight uniformity isn't amazing. The center is the brightest zone with up to 17% less light on basically all of the edges. Now this isn't overly visible to the eye, so I wouldn't be worried, and it's also remarkably consistent, but I thought it was worth mentioning. On the color front, I'm happy to report that this covers nearly 100% of the DCI-P3 spectrum in my testing, making for a vibrant and rich viewing experience. Content looks great here, and while it could do with being a little brighter, it's still more than good enough, especially considering the price tag and the fact that it's like a gaming monitor. Also, color accuracy is great too. The Spider X2 measured a delta E of just 0.93, making for an excellent result. On the physical side of things, AOC has changed up their design to a pretty sleek, angular, and all dark grey design. Gone are the red accents on the front and on the back, and in is the dark grey plastic. I actually kinda like this, and even the back has a pretty appealing design. The stand has plenty of adjustment in tilt, swivel, height, and even rotation into portrait mode if you want, plus a VESA mount is hidden under the stand mount as well. The stand's foot isn't overly deep, and so you can quite easily make it sort of rock and tip forward. And also any sort of swivel adjustments, because of how insanely light this panel is, requires two hands, one to hold the base and then one to do the adjustment. But otherwise though, this is a nice little package. I/O-wise, you get two HDMI 2.0 ports. It's a shame they aren't HDMI 2.1 for use with consoles, and one DisplayPort 1.4 ports, and no USB hubs here. One other shame is the on-screen display, or at least the controls. You've still got the downward facing individual buttons, rather than the joystick style switch that I think we all prefer. The OSD is a new design though, and is a good bit more responsive. You've got all of the gaming settings you would expect, even a backlight strobing mode that you can enable with adaptive sync on too. Not that that's something I'd recommend you do personally, but you have the option. Strangely, the overdrive setting is on the second page of the gaming settings, which I would expect it to be like right at the top. I mean, it's arguably one of the most important gaming related settings, so I'd want it front and center. Still, the new UI looks good and is easy to work with. For £150, and I'm sure a very similar price in dollars and euros too, this is a truly exceptional value. Any problems that I have with this are eschewed with ease at that price tag. For me, if you're just getting, starting out and you want to get a decent gaming monitor that doesn't break the bank, this is a no-brainer purchase. It is a shame that you might not have VRR support with the console, but especially if you're gaming on a PC, if you're looking for a cheap 1080p high refresh rate monitor, buy this one. And if you want to do that, I will leave a global Amazon affiliate link in the description if you want to check it out and see pricing when and where you watch this, because it can and does vary. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think about the 24G4X? Is this your next gaming monitor? Is it in the right sort of price bracket, or are you looking for maybe a 1440p option, or something else entirely? Let me know in those comments down below. If you want to be able to test stuff like this, I also make my own hardware, the open source response time tool and open source latency testing tool, which you can pick up at osrtt.com. I make them by hand here at my house. And otherwise, that's kind of it. If you want to see more videos like this one, you can hit the subscribe button, check out plenty of the other videos in the end cards. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you all in the next video.